Hey everybody, welcome back to the Claremont X-Men Comics Club. I am joined once again with my co-host, John Coates. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. We have kind of an interesting issue this week. It's sort of a fill-in issue, if as it were. Why don't we talk about it? Why don't you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, issue 106. It feels a little redundant plot wise, and we'll cover why that is. But the art is really interesting because this issue is a story by artist Bob Brown instead of Dave Cockrum.
Right.
And in issue 106, in the mail section, there's a little column penciled by Chris Claremont explaining what the deal is with this issue. So basically, Dave Cockrum got the chance to go off and pencil the first issue of Marvel's John Carter of Mars. And being a big John Carter fan, he couldn't pass that up.
Right.
So he goes to do that. And the story in issue 106 is a sort of fill-in story that was created a couple of years ago,
right,
before the issue actually comes out, just in case they would ever need a story in their back pocket. If deadlines got a crunch on them and they couldn't get the book out in time, they had something they could just put out.
Sure. Now, so a lot of people might not know that this happens all the time. The big two will hire artists and writers to do these kind of fill-in stories. If the team that's on it regularly is having a hard time hitting the deadline, they'll have these stories just like sitting in the vault that they can put in. And there's a 1,000 stories that don't never get to see the light of day. So that's kind of what this was.
Yeah, exactly. And so when that happened, they were able to put this story out. And so the artist Bob Brown, he's a Golden Age artist. Did a lot of stuff all the way from the 40s on through to the mid 70s here when this issue comes out. We looked up. He took over Challengers of the Unknown after Jack Kirby.
Correct.
So that's probably a big one.
Yep.
That he'd be known for. And then this is his only work on X-Men, at least with the new X-Men here. So the plot in it is a Bill Mantlo plot with Claremont doing the dialogue and everything. And and so in this little letter here, Claremont just kind of gives like a little, basically like a eulogy, because Bob Brown passed away like a couple of weeks before this issue hit the stands. So this is sort of this is posthumous issue by Dave Brown, and there's a nice little letter here by Claremont saying that Dave was like a really great guy and a nice person, and just like a great artist to work with and a guy to be around. So it's really nice.
I'm just thinking here, this is kind of interesting. So did they say that it was like drawn a couple years before? Did it say years?
Yeah, it says 2 years.
2 years. So the funny thing is it is in continuity with what is being published, which means that this was all written and plotted. Like everything that we're reading right now has been written and plotted 2 years prior.
Yeah, at least the plotting and the drawing. Like I wonder if they did final like sort of dialogue or not at the time, but maybe they did.
It's interesting because this, as you'll see, that this issue is sort of like in continuity with what we just read last week, but also redundant because there's a repeat sort of something that happened a couple issues earlier. So it's a wild, weird issue.
Yeah, and so let's get into it here.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So the first couple pages here are by Dave Cockrum.
Yeah.
And so this sort of bridges us from where we were last issue into the story for this issue.
Sure.
So if we remember, issue 105 ended, the X-Men went through a Stargate to sort of chase down Eric the Red and the Princess Lilandra, who showed up looking for the X-Men's help. And then the X-Men go through this Stargate to go follow them to the other side of the galaxy to save the universe.
Right.
And they were being attacked on Earth by Firelord here.
Mm-hmm.
And so the issue starts with Firelord looking for the X-Men after they have gone through the gate, and the professor's like, you can't get them. They're gonna save the universe, or we're all gonna die.
Right.
And but he's having still his headache problems.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got Jean Grey's roommate, Misty Knight, is here, still pointing that revolver at Firelord, ready to pop off some rounds, take him down if she needs to.
Yeah. Now these are the first Bob Brown pages, right?
Over on the right-hand page, page 3 here, this is going to be Bob Brown now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, because then Xavier's having this flashback, and then it basically tells you the story now that we're about to see from Bob Brown takes place between issue 96 and issue 97.
Got it. Okay, so this is starting to make sense how they sort of piece this together with this lead-in by Cockrum to make it work in the continuity, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. So then this is the story we're following is the X-Men right after Thunderbird has died, and they're at the mansion training.
Cool. Take a look at the suit that Wolverine's wearing in here. It's a little bit. It's the one with the stripes on the side, the original. So it's we haven't seen that in a minute, have we?
Oh yeah, no, we haven't, have we?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because if Bob Brown's doing this and there's only basically giant size and 1 or 2 issues out for him to look at.
Yeah, he was probably just looking at that Hulk issue.
Yeah. So basically, the X-Men they're training. Wolverine's about to get crushed by this steel I-beam. Colossus runs in, shoves him out of the way to save him. And Wolverine doesn't like that. He basically tells him off. He's like, "Oh, Petey Pureheart, boy hero, you want a medal?" And then so they're about to throw down, and Wolverine, he's ready to see if Colossus's steel skin can be cut by his adamantium claws.
Look at his Batman ears in that second panel. It's really I just love seeing these early iterations of Wolverine and how different artists are trying to interpret him. Yeah,
and I really like Bob Brown's work in this story. It's it's a little it's like very fluid. Yeah, I don't know. It's like a little bit. I don't want to say it's not wonky, but it's like it just feels slightly off model because we've been seeing Cockrum the whole time, and now all of a sudden there's a new guy drawing the new team.
Yeah. It'll throw you off a little bit, especially in those weird spots like that. However, look at in panel 3. Look at Storm's eyes. It's very much the Cockrum Catwoman Black Cat eyes, which is cool.
Yeah, and some of his figures are they're a little more elongated. Which is very interesting. Yeah. And so, basically, then, Cyclops is telling Wolverine back off, and they're going to go at it a little bit. And then the Banshee comes in. I love this Banshee face right here. Really nice. And he's sort of the wise older member, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, if you hadn't told me that this was a different artist, I would have thought that Storm was drawn by Cockrum.
Yeah, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they look up and they're getting taunted, and it's Angel.
Check it out. Angel doesn't apparently have to flap his wings to fly.
Yeah, not this version of Angel.
Yeah.
And he's in his OG costume.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all confused. They're like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
Right. Now, we saw the old version of the X-Men not too long ago on a space station, and they were a sort of new model of Sentinel, it turned out.
Yeah, and so that's where the plot of this issue, the rest of this issue, where it feels it's kind of redundant, because it's basically what happens in X-Men 100.
Right.
With the new team as Sentinels, sort of going at our new guys, and then they're confused the whole time, being like, "Oh, well, I thought we were friends," or "Why are you acting this way?" And then and then eventually Wolverine is the guy to figure it out. So I wonder if they sort of had this, so they had done this story and had it in their back pocket. And then maybe they just sort of revisited the idea.
Yeah.
After it was done, thinking like, well, this one's probably never going to see the light of day, but this is a good idea to get the original team versus the new team.
That's my guess.
Yeah. And then, so then they put it in X-Men 100, but then all of a sudden the deadline gets caught up to him, and Cockrum wants to go do this other book, and they got to put something out.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what happens. So we'll just go through and kind of look at the artwork here.
Yeah, great face of Storm at the bottom there. Great angle. I love the way that Marvel Girl, as she is. I am not, it's Marvel Girl to you, sister. That panel is just great. I love both of those faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not a lot of backgrounds.
No. He was cranking it out,
Yep.
Whenever to create this fill-in at the time. Mm-hmm. Banshee's got to save Cyclops from falling, sort of a recurring thing. Wolverine fighting off Iceman here, cutting through the ice. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah, his Iceman's pretty rough. But like you said, I have a feeling that this thing just needed to be kicked out the door. And, it's like, I think we've talked about this before. It's like just getting I think you said it in a comment on something else, just getting a book out the door is a feat, even a bad book. It's something to be applauded and commended, because it's so hard to do this job. So, like anytime that we talk like a little bit like negatively or put our negative opinion on something, we understand also that like there's other things going on, other factors when they're putting something out. So, we know that, this probably had some sort of, weight on him as he was doing this, like, you need to draw this in 4 days, kind of deal. So, and so when you look at something like Cyclops's face at the bottom right panel there, and you go, what the hell is that with those cockles? That's probably why, because he didn't have time to take a second look at it. He had to get this thing out the door.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well said, Chris. Making comics is hard.
Yeah. And,
it's hard to make 1 or 2 pages of comics, but to get like a whole book done and completed and a story completed, I mean, that's commendable.
Yeah.
And look at that upshot Cyclops yelling. Even looks good when Bob Brown does it.
Yeah, but his visor's weird, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It is weird. It's weird on the edges. It's like not.
It's like really big or something.
Yeah.
Or the visor is small. The actual part he sees out of.
Yeah. It's a little bit off.
Mm.
And then Banshee coming in hard, bursting eardrums with his screams, but only for a second, because all of a sudden this Angel, nothing's affecting him. I love this move here, though. It pulling off Cyclops's visor and using his beams to just blast Colossus. Like, that's a good move.
I like it. I actually like that drawing of Colossus at the top where it's very simple and just the dots for eyes. That actually kind of feels, in an odd way, modern and cartoony.
Yeah. I also like this Cyclops at the bottom here. Mask completely off, so you just kind of see his hair and then just the red of the eye beams.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And then we get, Nightcrawler sticking to walls.
Beast, yes, Nightcrawler sticking to walls, but look at where Beast is sticking to the wall. What's happening to the wall when he grabs it?
Yeah, because he's like grabbing it with his toes.
Yeah, he's cracking the wall.
Yeah. Some more good, and that this is great right here. Colossus is sort of has caught Nightcrawler and is going to throw him.
Yeah. Different kind of fastball special. Maybe this is a curveball.
Yeah, exactly. And they're still duking it out. Nobody can figure out what's going on just yet. So here's where it's the issue. It deviates from what we've seen from X-Men 100. And it's pretty cool. So we get this big splash of the team, and here's the Professor. I guess, his wheelchair got blown up or something. Like, he's crawling into the room and basically makes the original X-Men disappear because they were figments of his mind, and they were just illusions that the rest of the team was fighting against. And then all of a sudden showing up is another version of the Professor with a cape and green skin, and this is the evil version, or the evil psyche of Professor X.
Ooh.
Coming out. So I call this basically like your first appearance of Onslaught. If anybody knows your late 90s X-Men, when they had the whole Marvel Universe fighting against basically the Professor's evil psyche.
Okay, we'll call this the first appearance of Onslaught.
Yeah.
This first drawing of him here looks two things. It looks very much like a Kirby drawing, so it feels like it was swiped a little bit. And also he looks a lot like Nosferatu. When you put him in that tone, give him a cape and maintain those Bernie Wrightson eyebrows.
Yeah.
very, very much very, very much like Nosferatu. So
yeah, this middle panel, like if you just give him some fangs.
Yeah. Whited out his eyes, maybe gave him some fangs. Totally. Bucktooth fangs. Count Orlok, I should say. Nosferatu just as vampire.
And then so the team, so now they're trying to fight against this alternate Professor X. And he keeps causing illusions, like the floor turns into like a big chasm.
Yeah.
And Wolverine's trying to figure it out. He's like, well, I know it's not real, but it feels real, like I'm falling. And the Professor basically tells him it's not real, but it can still kill you.
Right. In your mind.
Yeah, because you believe it's real enough that you believe in it, and believing in it will kill you if you fall down it.
Right. That whole, if you die in your dreams.
Yeah. And eventually the Professor just sort of turns the tide on his doppelganger and brings back the old X-Men, but to do what he wants them to do. And they sort of fight off his sort of bad half. And that goes away, and he's basically like conquered his own sort of demon, his own internal evil demon. He explains it as like it was a Mr. Hyde and Dr. Jekyll situation.
Wow. That's not a good thing when you have that much power.
Yeah, right. And he's like, usually I have no trouble keeping that part of my psyche in check. So it's like something he knows is there.
Yeah.
And he's actively having to fight against it and keep this dark side away.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah. And then we get our final panel here. Takes us back to the professor on the roof in front of the Stargate, where the issue basically started.
Yeah. I wonder if that's a Cockrum panel added. Must be.
You know,
because they wouldn't have known about the Stargate at the time. It's
no,
a very
So if he did the sort of the page one, he must have drawn this little image too.
Yeah, must have.
So
this is an interesting issue. I mean, it's weird because it's so redundant, but it's also acts as sort of this tribute to Bob Brown, and you know, gives us another side of the professor that we didn't, you know, that, you know, maybe the whole 90s onslaught thing would never have happened had this issue not come out, you know?
Yeah, planting the seeds. It's also interesting to see how they designed this as a fill-in where they could put it anywhere they wanted. Because, like, you know, you get the sort of the thought bubble ending with space to do one panel at the end to go back to wherever they were filling it in.
Yeah, well, it's always
they must have left that, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's very possible that they could have had the work and then gone back and like did a paste up of that, you know, and cut out whatever was what was in the last panel. There's many different ways they could have done it. I'm curious. So it's a question to ask somebody who might know if we ever get a chance to ask them. Write it down.
Yeah, definitely. And that is X-Men 106.
Awesome.
So it kind of drops in our lap right in the midst of a huge galactic story that's just kicking off. And we take a breather to dive back into this little past story. And the book is still bi-monthly right here. So, you know, even bi-monthly, they were still right up on deadlines, so that when Cockrum left to go do, and I think he only does one issue of that John Carter. I think he just does the first issue. Because
he just loves it so much, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was a super pulp fan, you know, because like Nightcrawler is such the swashbuckler guy, and that's his favorite guy.
Yeah, and I noticed a lot of his a lot of his female designs feel very much like the Princess of Mars, you know. Yeah. Something else I was gonna say. Yeah, I don't remember. Very, very interesting. Yeah, what a crazy issue. But then, you know, whoever was reading the issue before this, they got to wait 4 months for the story to continue, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, 4 months to find out, like, oh, does the universe live? Does it die? What happened?
Yeah. What happened to the X-Men, right? Well, that's really cool. Short episode today, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with a short episode. Yeah, next week we will be taking a look at issue 107, where we're going to pick up where we left off, I guess, at the first 2 pages of this issue, but definitely at the end of 105. So this issue had no classic X-Men issue, so there was no backup for it because it was sort of a fill-in. So they decided it didn't need to be in the classic X-Men stuff.
Yeah, they did not reprint it. So if you want sort of to honor Bob Brown with his issue of X-Men, you got to go get the original.
Yep. Or it is in the app. So
yeah.
For next week, issue 107, we're back on track, back on target. John, where can people find you?
My books are at dinobeast.com, and I'm on the Instagram at jdcoates.
Awesome. You'll see where you can find all my stuff. As always, there will be a speed drawing of the episode thumbnail at the end, and those are always available on my website, chrisandersoncomics.com. And until next time, break out your books, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Take care, everybody. Join my Patreon to see my work before anyone else, plus score physical sketchbooks, mini comics, and commissions delivered right to your door, and read my new books, Something Seems Off and Three-Headed Pigman, as they are made. Go to my website to order original art, commissions, and my books, Lost Angels, Spectral: A Showcase of Fear, Chaotic Neutral, and more. Gray Matter Drip, The Art of Chris Anderson, is available now from Cosmic Lion Productions. Here are the upcoming conventions I'll be at the time of this recording. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. It helps spread the word. Thanks.